where do you start? You know, in a situation where it manifests down the road and there's no immediate causative factor seen. So I would say, in retrospect, especially based on information from my doctors, at least two of them who also practice Oriental medicine, is that this has its root in stress. And in particular, the stress from the loss of my wealth in Bermuda, when an insurance company decided it was not going to pay me for placing a health insurance group plan with a hotel. The commission was about $8,000 a month. Concomitant with that was same insurance company refused to insure my baby, who was born in British Columbia, Canada. And I didn't send in an enrollment card, as they said, which is true, within the first 30 days of his birth. But I notified folks at the company because I had been working with them for a few years, and it was an exciting time. That led to a major challenge in my life. I had to find money to replace what was lost.
So you had the loss from the commission in the insurance company, plus now you had a medically fragile child that you had to care for as well, right?
Exactly. And in addition, they sent letters out to all of my clients offering them the equivalent of my commission if they would switch from me to the company. So there was a period of time where funds just stopped. So I had to make a choice, long story short, to fight for the money or save my son. I took the route of saving my son. And I'm happy to say that 21 years later, he's alive, and that was a significant accomplishment with the help of his mother and numerous doctors, especially Dr. Wu, who I've gone to now with my prostate cancer.
So when were you diagnosed with prostate cancer?
I was diagnosed with prostate cancer around July 9th.
This year?
This year. And actually I went in for gallbladder surgery, and family, Erica, said, will you do a PSA test? And I have a family history, brother, father, and others who have been diagnosed with prostate cancer and had surgical intervention. To your question of when did it start, I did not have the wherewithal to have health insurance along with my son having health insurance. So it was a question of priority. Because we lost or didn't have the commission that we had earned, wound up creating a charity in Bermuda, and funds were not at a level constantly that would have allowed me to have health insurance and him to have health insurance, as well as to pay for Oriental medical costs that were not covered by his health policy.
So this was for your son's health care. He was receiving the Oriental treatment from Dr. Wu?
Yeah, from 2000 till 2013, thereabouts. So during that period of time, I did not get checked for prostate issues. And what's very interesting is I've done a little research, not a lot. The evidence-based research I've uncovered shows that black Americans, African Americans, as they're referred to, are twice as likely to die from prostate cancer as white Americans. And I got a bit concerned that it was a black-white situation, and African Americans isolated. And I wanted to know if Africans or other blacks also were looking at similar numbers. And the fact is that in Africa there's not a lot of data because of the conditions, economic and so forth, social, cultural, as you would find in America. So we have rough data that says the ratios are the same, and because of cultural, financial, and other environmental causes, African men are similarly at risk for prostate cancer, especially advanced stage prostate cancer, because once you get it, then you don't have coverage, you don't have the doctors with the expertise, death rates are significantly different than whites who might be subject to it. In the research I have been reading, the causative factor is stress, discrimination, lack of financial resources, and lack of adequate insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So looking for me at the epigenetics of black men, there's a lot of, I would say, association with the whole evolution of black men in America since slavery, with stress, trying to make it, trying to provide, and running into issues of segregation, discrimination, racial issues. So with me, coming from Bermuda, I wanted to think that it was going to be different, but I think the plight of black man in the world has a similarity, regardless of what country. It's just the way it is. So when I went to have a gallbladder surgery, family asked for a PSA test. I got a PSA test, and the numbers were scary. This was after a CT scan, which basically said I've got advanced stage prostate cancer with a metastasis to the bone. The urologist I was referred to said, "You've got 2 years to live." He said, with castration, chemically or surgically, maybe we can give you another 18 months. But in the meantime, you're going to have symptoms similar to women in menopause. Breast growth, mood change, hot flashes, quality of life is not going to be what you've experienced. That was hard to hear, but I had an alternative, and that was the same doctor that saved my son's life, Dr. Wu. Problem that I had been familiar with before is insurance doesn't pay for oral medicine. It's not based on science, and the actuaries struggle to be able to confirm the efficacy of it. through scientific method. So for me, it was, how am I going to pay for this treatment?
Mm-hmm.
Now all resources have been exhausted, minus a public appeal, which is what I had to do with Meti, and try to raise the money to save my own life. I don't know how effective it's going to be, but when you look at the end of life, it becomes quite a challenge when you have to appeal to someone's higher nature, generosity, heart,
Mm-hmm.
for assistance to live. And at age 70, it's, I've heard things such as, well, you've had a good innings.
A good what?
It's cricket.
Oh, okay.
You've had a good innings. You know, you're 70 and you've done a lot in your life. And to me, that's sort of like, we don't see putting a whole lot into you. You've done your due. But I feel I have a lot yet to do. I have to overcome the devastation of the loss of my earnings over years. And in fact, it's millions of dollars. People say, you? Millions of dollars? Well, just figure. $8,000 a month times 12 months times 10 years, compounded annually with an insurance premium increase per year of between 16 and 20%. And that's compounded. So just that one case was worth millions. And when you add to that what was already in place, I look at my economic life worth, and it's been obliterated. And now I'm fighting for my life and having to reference in my mind, why do I have to do this? I've already done this. And unfortunately for me, the statute of limitations has run out. So there's not a legal action I can take. And when I could, my focus was on saving my son. So I'm now having to...
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so what is the appeal that you're making now, though?
We have a website, marvinbrock.com, and I have friends have in the film industry created a GoFundMe page. So whatever assistance can be given in this fight for my life, I would appreciate tremendously, because it's not over, and I feel I have a lot more to offer to the community. When someone said, you've been a servant to the community, I couldn't really see it. But when I thought of the insurance benefits that many have had as a result of the work I did, I said, oh, okay, accept it.
So I know it's impossible to think about what the entire cost of your health care might be, but you know, if we're thinking maybe month by month, do you have an idea of what?
It's about $5,000 a month. So it's very interesting. I've been watching sort of the meter, and the meter in my mind has reached a point where, like the water in the glass, the water in the glass has gotten to a point now where there's very little left. And when I say that, it's not a quarter, it's not a half, it's a question of will the treatments continue or not?
What kind of treatment do you receive?
It's very interesting. You've heard me use the term Oriental medicine. Oriental medicine is more than acupuncture. Many people think of Oriental medicine as acupuncture. Acupuncture is only a part of it. Oriental medicine or Asian medicine or Chinese medicine is a complex assortment of different treatments, such as acupuncture, herbs, qigong, manipulation, which is really under the title Tuina, and these and others are combined to provide a comprehensive and a cohesive treatment process that is much more effective than just putting needles in people.
How do you measure the effectiveness of that kind of a treatment that you're receiving?
Well, for me, it was quite evident early on when I felt better. And now it's where people are looking at me and saying, wow, you look good. And for me, I'm saying, as I listen to these words, well, what was I supposed to look like? You know? But the only thing that's really impeding my improvement is I'm not able to walk. And that's the result of the surgery I had on July 11 of 2018, where it was found that a tumor was wrapped around my spinal cord. And the only way to, in Western medical treatment, was to sever the back of my spine and go in and unwrap the tumor from around my spinal cord, which allowed for the cerebral spinal fluid to flow. But in the process, they severed the nerves to my lower body. And the result has been I haven't been able to walk unassisted. I have a walker, a wheelchair, and it's quite challenging for me, having been a martial artist, a marathoner, triathlete, not to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. That's not even, I can stand for short periods of time. I timed myself the other day. I could stand for a few minutes at a time, unassisted. But the other aspects of the surgery that have made it even more challenging has been the loss of control over bodily functions. So not only am I not able to walk, but I'm having to adjust to the life I've known being different from the life that I'm experiencing now. But I have hope. I'm seeing signs of improvement. You stand, you don't stand, you fall, get up, stand again. Next day, same thing. So unfortunately for me, all 3 days I didn't manage to get beyond 18 hours a day, which was very frustrating for me because the real issue wasn't physical. The real issue was with my mind. And I tell people I lost my mind. I lost control of my mind. And I was saying to myself, Marvin, you're just dumb. Nobody stands for 24 hours a day for 3 days. You listen to some old Chinese guy tell you to do something that's just humanly impossible, and you're following him thinking you can do it. After that experience, over those 3 days, I realized that the voice in my mind, in my body, in my being, in my heart, had defeated me in the process, because I listened, and the first day that I listened to this little voice, it said, just sit down on the edge of the couch for a few minutes, catch your breath, and you can, well, I sat down and I about rolled over and fell asleep. The next day, when I got to 18 hours, I don't know what happened. I woke up 6 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, with my forehead plastered to the floor, and I was on my knees. How that happened, I don't know. And the final day, having not succeeded as I wanted to the first 2 days, the voice was very loud. It was, you can't do this. And so I just stopped and had hoped that I would have a chance another time. That hasn't happened. Too many other things came into my life. Courts taking away my son after 12 years caring for him and rearing him. So now I'm faced with this fight for life, and I have to draw on every bit of my experience with Dr. Wu and the standing, and he said, you benefited. It wasn't all lost. It was not for no gain. Now you have to learn how to do an even more difficult form of meditation. So I'm ready to take it on, because it's a do or die. When I went to the National University of Natural Medicine, they have a Qigong program that students follow. And I, having had the experience of standing like a tree, is referred to in Western terms, and I use that as sort of my springboard to their forms of meditation. And at my advanced age, it was less challenging than some of the ways of performing their form of Qigong. Yeah. So suffice it to say, they were impressed with me standing for an hour and a half at one time without moving. So
this is when you were in
medical school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is how I've, using local colloquialisms, rolled all my life. A challenge is just that. And the only thing that beats a failure is to try. So I was able to try and succeed and enter or matriculate into medical school at 69, 70. And I went by the school recently and said, I'm coming back. And I said, well, we're looking forward to it, and we have a place for you. So,
and that's a school of Eastern medicine, right?
Well, it's a naturopathic school. It's been in operation in Portland for, I think, longer than any other naturopathic school. And it also has a department or college of classical Chinese medicine, along with nutrition, et cetera, other colleges. My reason, the impetus for me to do this has been, I've seen the efficacy of it. It saved my son's life. I've seen people come and go, and even people with prostate cancer. And I've seen the result, and it's been effective. Here I am, 3 months past the surgery for my spine, and from what I'm hearing, I don't look like I'm ready to hit the grave.
So I have to ask you finally is, you mentioned these voices sometimes that come up and they're not always encouraging. Yes. So I'm thinking about where you are now in your journey and what is it that kind of helps you to combat some of those voices?
It's a constant struggle. In many of the movies, Hollywood, we see references to this with good and evil, the white hat and the black hat, and the battle within oneself of a higher way of being. Some we refer to it as spiritual and earthly or physical. It's quite real. It's attention getting, especially when, in my case, I'm fighting for my life. And the pain associated with cancer, Dr. Wu had mentioned that the character for pain in Chinese and the character for cancer are the same, or very similar. And I can say that if cancer is associated with pain, I got cancer, because I got a lot of pain. And the anticipation of pain coming, in my case, occurs trying to stand up, trying to sit for an extended period of time, in bed, on one side or the other. And there's a voice that comes up that's like, just throw in the towel. Dr. Wu mentioned early on that prostate cancer is second in pain only to the cancer that Steve Jobs had, pancreatic cancer. And for me, there have been thoughts of how do I throw in the towel without it being painful. So having to wrestle physically and mentally with this scourge has been the challenge of my life. But I want to do some things for my son. And I believe that I have enough to offer others that if I can beat this, there's hope. So the word for me that propels me forward is hope. The treatments that I've been given or am being given by Dr. Wu and the herbs sort of confirms that I'm on the mend, and that gives solidity, if I can use that term effectively, to hope. It's not just some pie in the sky mindset that I'm drawing on that doesn't have any substance. You know, it's like, yeah, I feel good. Can't walk. Yeah, well, what can we do about that? You know, so I'm looking for any and every avenue to foster this desire to walk. And with that comes the realization of the dream. And we have to have dreams. We have to have motivation. We have to have goals. And what is a dream? A dream is a creation of one's mind, of one's thinking. And we can create whatever we want to create. Just create it. The next thing is to believe it. There was a very famous motivational speaker who said, whatever a man can conceive and believe, he can achieve. And I changed that for more up-to-date terminologies. Whatever a person can believe and achieve. Believe, conceive and believe they can achieve. So I live in a world of creating and then methodically dressing back to what do I need to do to reach a milestone. I'll call that a goal. And what kind of action steps do I need to take to get to that goal? So for me, with this situation, it is go for acupuncture, get the Qigong, take the herbs, do the exercises, and obey the doctor who knows what he's doing.